2,000 pounds of muscle and rage charges at 40 miles per hour. The target? A deer with antlers sharp enough to impale a grown man. The collision sounds like a car crash. And here's the part that'll blow your mind. Both of these animals have killed more people in U.S. national parks than grizzly bears. More than bears. Let that sink in. So, when North America's tank on hooves faces off against its most lethal deer, who actually survives? Stick around, because what happens at 3-on-1 changes everything. Size doesn't lie. The American bison is 2,000 pounds of walking demolition. When it charges, the ground shakes. These animals have been documented standing their ground against predators, including bears, and winning through sheer mass and force. The elk, roughly half that weight, fast, agile, and those antlers, 4 feet across, multiple points, growing up to an inch per day during mating season. An inch per day! Nature is absolutely unhinged. But here's the real difference. The elk's hide is typical deer skin. The bison's is dramatically thicker, especially around the head and shoulders, dense enough to blunt bites and impacts that would seriously injure most animals. David versus Goliath, except David has antlers and Goliath is wearing body armor. The weapon problem. Everyone looks at those massive elk antlers and thinks that's the ultimate weapon. Wrong. Elk antlers are designed to fight other elk. They lock together in pushing contests. It's wrestling gear. Beautiful, dangerous wrestling gear. But the bison isn't another elk. It's a low-slung, armored battering ram. Trying to fight a bison with antlers is like trying to joust a tank. You might make contact, but you're not built for what comes next. The bison's horns are short, thick, and reinforced for ramming. Its entire head and neck function as a single kinetic weapon. Could an elk land a perfect side strike to the ribs? Sure, if the bison stood still. It doesn't. The elk brought a rapier to a demolition derby. Speed versus mass. The elk is faster, around 45 miles per hour with real agility. It can dodge, leap, and change direction quickly. The bison, a freight train in a straight line. Awkward turns, massive momentum. When it commits to a charge, it commits fully. So the elk just stays mobile, right? Tires it out. Here's the problem. Male bison have been observed fighting head-to-head for hours during mating season. They show an extreme tolerance for injury and fatigue. The elk gets tired. The bison gets more aggressive. 1-on-1. Open field, 1 bison, 1 elk. The elk circles, using reach and speed. The bison lowers its head and commits. No feints, no hesitation. The elk dodges. Good move. Tries a counter, maybe draws blood. The bison barely slows. It turns, slowly, and charges again. Eventually, space runs out, or footing slips, or timing fails for half a second. And when 2,000 pounds connects at 40 miles per hour, that's enough. Broken ribs, internal injuries, or a trampling that ends it immediately. The elk's winning path is landing multiple perfect strikes without ever getting hit. That's technically possible, the same way it's technically possible to beat Mike Tyson with a pool noodle. Estimation: bison wins roughly 90% of the time, if not more. 2-on-1. Now add a second elk. You'd think this changes everything. It doesn't. And here's why. Elk aren't wolves. Wolves evolved to coordinate, to commit as a unit. Elk didn't. What actually happens is both elks circle, cautious, reactive, no real synchronization. Then the bison charges, full force, into one of them. One solid hit breaks the fight instantly, a leg, ribs, or the will to continue. The second elk does the math and leaves. 2 elk raise the odds, but not much. Estimation: bison still wins about 60 to 70%.
3-on-1. 3 elk finally changed the equation, not because they suddenly cooperate, but because 3 sets of antlers create pressure from multiple angles. The bison can't watch all of them at once. It takes hits to the flanks, the hindquarters. It has to turn constantly. Fatigue finally matters. But it's still not a guaranteed elk win. One clean charge still removes an elk from the fight, and once that happens, the remaining two are thinking about escape, not revenge. Most likely outcome? A short, violent clash. One elk goes down hard, the other two disengage. Alternate outcome: the elk land enough cumulative damage that the bison decides the fight isn't worth it and retreats. Not dies, retreats. Estimation: at 3-on-1, the odds finally approach 50-50. It took 3 elk just to get there. Adding elk helps far less than people expect. Their weapons aren't optimized for this opponent. Their psychology isn't built for coordinated violence, and one hit from the bison still removes an elk from the equation every time. By 4 or 5 elk, the bison usually disengages immediately. But think about that. 4,000 pounds of antlered muscle just to convince one bison the fight isn't worth it. That's not a victory. That's a negotiated truce written in blood and broken bones. Final thoughts? One bison beats one elk most of the time. Not because the elk is weak, but because it brought the wrong tools to the wrong fight. 2 elk barely move the needle. 3 elk finally make it competitive. 4 or more, and the bison walks away. Nature isn't fair, but it rewards mass, armor, pain tolerance, and absolute commitment. The elk is a medieval knight with a sword. The bison is a tank that doesn't know what quit means. If this changed how you see these animals, hit like and subscribe for more similar breakdowns. And if you ever see either of these in the wild, stay in your car.